The Witness Media Lab is devoted to curating videos of abuse in order to support advocacy and advance the use of eyewitness videos for human rights. We looked at videos of police abuse, instances of police abuse caught on camera, and asked the questions. How did the videos emerge? What impact did they make? And what gaps can we address in order to better leverage video as a tool for justice? And we started to explore some answers. At the URL here on the screen, lab.witness.org/projects, we have analysis, videos, and resources that has come out of that work, and I hope you can find some time to check it out. I'll take just a few minutes to share one of the cases that we looked at. It's the story of a woman from Baltimore named Kianga Mwamba. Kianga Mwamba began recording on her cell phone last March when she was driving home late at night and saw police officers kicking a man in handcuffs. I'm going to play a short clip of her recording, and as a warning, the audio is disturbing and profane.
Why can't tell me y'all can't record? So you telling me I can't record on my phone? Okay. Okay. My father the police, I know I can record. All right, I'll park, and I hear y'all saying this.
You need to pull the car over.
I'm ready to pull it over.
Okay.
Pull your car over.
Pull the car over right now, ma'am.
Pull your car over.
How can I pull my car over right here and the police right here?
What?
Why would you do that?
Give your fucking hands. Out of the car.
Are you
Out of the car.
out of the
fucking car.
Are you really? Are you serious?
Fucking car.
My father's the police. He's banging me. He's banging me.
Out of the car. I'm not fucking out of the car. Out of the
He's banging me.
On the ground.
Oh my God, are you serious? Are you serious? Are you serious?
Yes.
Wow.
Behind your back.
My hands behind me. Are y'all serious?
Yes.
Yes.
My father is the police, and I'ma see the shit. I'ma see the shit out of Baltimore. You said fuck me? Okay.
Yes.
All that is on my phone.
You a dumb bitch, you know that?
What did I do?
You just tried to run over an officer. That's exactly.
Police knew Mwamba had been recording, and her phone was not locked. She was arrested that night, and when she was released from jail, the footage was no longer on her phone. Some days later, however, her daughter found that footage. It turned out that her phone had been set to automatically back up photos and videos, which is why we have the footage that we just saw. So what happened? Kianga showed the video to authorities, and 6 months later, the charges against her were dropped. But she was given no indication that the police officers involved in this arrest were seriously investigated or disciplined for excessive use of force, for falsifying a report, or for any of the other crimes or violations that we saw in this footage. She has filed a lawsuit against the city of Baltimore and the police, and is hoping to go to trial later this year. So for those of us who want to use video for change, this case raises several questions. How do we know what videos we aren't seeing? How many have never seen the light of day because they were confiscated or destroyed? If videos are providing powerful data to expose patterns of police abuse, what data are we missing? The story also points to a few steps that all of us can take to secure our phones and our footage and ensure that videos like hers can provide evidence of abuse. But there are other aspects of this case that are not so easy to address, and those have to do with the real changes that we want to see videos like Mwamba's support. We've seen numerous cases in which video contains evidence of abuse and yet does not result in any disciplinary action against officers. It's important to remember that even the most incriminating video evidence is limited in what it can achieve if the processes in place to investigate allegations of abuse lack independence, integrity, and transparency. And that's why it takes more than the tools and technology, more than courageous bystanders and their videos, but also lawyers, community leaders, the news media, and others working together to make sure that eyewitness videos are used safely and effectively to expose abuse and lead to change. For example, in Brazil, witnesses working with media activists like Coletivo Papo Reto and legal collectives to ensure that videos of police violence in favelas can support advocacy work around accountability and reform. Finally, the case of Kianga Mwamba underscores the need to address the safety and security of eyewitnesses. People like Mwamba, like Kevin Moore, like Raull Santiago and his peers at Papo Reto, are the new faces of journalism and human rights documentation. Whether they are accidental witnesses or purposeful ones, it is incumbent upon all of us working for a more just society to think of how we can better support their safety and ensure that their work is not in vain. These are the sorts of issues that I look forward to learning about more from our panelists here tonight and from all of you as this important discussion continues. And with that, I'd like to turn it over to one journalist who, perhaps more than any other in this country, is known for amplifying the voices and stories of marginalized communities. Please join me in welcoming to the stage Amy Goodman, who will introduce tonight's panelists.
To be part of this project tonight and to introduce very brave people who risk their lives doing something they shouldn't have to risk their lives to do, simply to document what's happening in their communities. So tonight you'll hear stories, you'll hear what they do, we'll talk about what video as evidence means, what are the limits of videoing, what happens, what are your rights, as you saw in this video right here, a young woman whose father was a police officer. I'm going to introduce people one by one instead of everyone together. Each will talk about some of their work, and then we'll have a conversation, and we hope to include some of you. And a shout out to everyone who's watching on the video stream, because it's very important that this be a global conversation. I don't know how many of you listen to or watch Democracy Now!, but it's a grassroots global news hour. My colleague Juan Carlos and Carla Wills are here tonight. And we started, well, almost 20 years ago in February, and we started on 9 stations. And it was the election year, the election, a daily broadcast in public radio. And we thought it would end with the election of 1996. The day after, there was more response to it and calls for it to continue than there were before the elections. Why? Because it's voice to people who are not usually heard. And that's not a fringe minority. It's not even a silent majority, but it's the silenced majority, silenced by the corporate media, which is why we have to take the media back. We have to be the media. We started on 9 stations. We went to 8 stations when we were broadcasting Mumia Abu-Jamal's voice in Pennsylvania, and the radio stations that ran us in Pennsylvania all dropped us. It was part of a network. But we just continued. And we started on television in 2001. And it's that hunger for independent voices, like you are going to hear about tonight, that I think was the reason that Democracy Now! Went to 9 community radio stations to today 1,300 public radio and television stations in the United States and around the world. What's important is to hear people speak for themselves. So let me say no more, and let's hear from Kevin Moore. Kevin Moore, we're going to start with. And you may not know Kevin, but I bet everyone in this room and everyone who's watching on the Witness video stream knows the video that he took. He's the person who filmed the arrest of Freddie Gray. It was April 12th of this year. In the morning, a Sunday morning, he too lived at the Gilmore houses. But Kevin, why don't you take it from there? What happened on that Sunday morning, and what did you do, and why did you decide to do what you did?
Well, that Sunday morning I was sleeping, and I was awakened to a lot of screaming, and a lot of screaming and yelling and commotion. And so they were screaming, they're tasing him, they're tasing him, they're tasing him. So I grabbed my hoodie and a pair of sweatpants, and I grabbed my phone, and I was out the door. And I remember, because I was on the backside first, I remember seeing how they had him folded, and it looked just awful, awfully painful. And
what do you mean folded?
Well, he was face down, he was handcuffed. The heels of his feet were almost in the midsection of his back. And mind you, he's maybe 130 pounds. And so at that point, I started to,
is this, okay.
At this point, I started to try to figure out who it was, you know? And so I crossed around into the street behind a minivan, I think it was, and once I saw it was Freddie, it then registered to me that it was real, and that it was a friend of mine that they had on the ground, and he was screaming for dear life, and I remember it just like it was yesterday, and so I started recording, and I tried to zoom in tight on his face to try to get at least the pain that he was in. And
this is just your cell phone?
This is just my cell phone. I was terrified, you know. I wanted to leave. Every ounce of me wanted to go, you know, but I was compelled to stay. The right thing I felt to do was to record this, and my heart spoke to me that day, and it was just like, dude, you have to get this out there. And so I recorded, and then afterwards I was very bold. I went to internal affairs for X amount of hours, I think it was 7 or 8 hours, and I gave them the video, and they recorded me, audio and video, and
you gave them your cell phone?
Oh yeah.
With the video on
with
it?
The video
Did you have a copy?
No backup. No backup. And so
what was your reason for going to them?
Because I felt like the internal affairs, from what I've heard, you know, are supposed to be the ones who police the police. You know what I'm saying? This is supposed to be their job. And so I gave them the video, and it felt like they were taking too long for me, you know, to put the video out and you know, to try to find out what was going on and actually do something about it. So what I did was I called every news station I could, you know, Fox, WBAL, ABC, pretty much every news station in Baltimore City. And that's how I got the Freddie Gray video out there. I went to YouTube, I went everywhere. And I did upward of 300 interviews, and that's how I kept it going, you know? I try to keep the spotlight on it and let people know that this is happening everywhere, you know what I'm saying? It's not just secluded to Baltimore, it's a worldwide thing, and that we have to shed light on this situation and what's the best way to destroy any darkness, you know, so.
And so this went on for a number of days, and then Freddie Gray died a week later on April 19th.
Yep. And so he passed away, and we heard that what we got from the doctors that he had a crushed larynx and 3 cracked vertebrae, and 80% of his spinal cord was severed, and it was tough, you know. This was a friend of mine. And the last thing I said to him was, you know, dude, we're gonna go eat and have fun and talk about life, you know, and once I saw that it was him on the ground, it was just like a kick in the face of reality, you know. It was like no longer a game to me, you know, because I was a kid. When I was a kid, I used to witness, you know, things of this nature, and before Freddie, I never picked up a camera. You know, it was never Kevin Moore, the activist, and so after that, it was just like, dude, I'm tired of it. I'm tired of watching my friends, you know, die and nothing be done about it, you know, and that humans deserve better than what we're receiving.
What was your reaction when Marilyn Mosby, the state's attorney, held that news conference and announced there would be 6 officers indicted for the death of your friend, of Freddie Gray?
I cried. I cried. It was the only emotion that I could muster, you know. It was a lot of emotions going through my mind. A lot of rage, you know, at the same time of a lot of peace and love that I wanted to share, because I felt like finally somebody's listening, you know, to what we have to say, and I believe that Mosby understood us as a people, as a community, that we need her, you know what I'm saying? We needed those charges to be made.
Do you think it would have happened without your video?
I don't know. I don't know. A lot of things that the police do are swept under the rug. So I don't want to say that it would have been, but history tells it, you know? Police don't normally go to jail for the dirt that they do. So I feel like in that sense that it would have been swept under the rug, and nothing would have been done about it, and no police would have been charged, and there would have been no protest and no uprisings and no empowerment to the people, you know what I'm saying, to the world. And I feel like with that video that I shed light on numerous things, you know what I'm saying, amongst the police brutality. And so with that being said, I keep cop watching every day. I go out and I do about 8 hours of cop watching, and I have 3 kids and a wife, so I'm very conscious of my life and well-being, you know. But at this point, it's like, if I have to die for my children to live free, then I'm a dead man.
Well, we're going to continue this discussion after each person speaks. Bima Ahmed is next, social justice activist, human rights and animal rights attorney, daughter of Pakistani immigrants. Bina was a legal consultant to the National Lawyers Guild, New York, working on Occupy Wall Street criminal and civil rights cases. She lived and worked in Palestine with Al-Haq and also with PETA, the group that works on animal rights, and with the Center for Constitutional Rights and Human Rights Watch. She served on the Russell Tribunal on Palestine in 2012 and was legal consultant to the Norwegian Refugee Council's Palestine Division, as well as to the Badil Resource Center for Palestinian Residency and Refugee Rights. She's done a number of other things. It was National Vice President to the National Lawyers Guild National Chapter, currently a public defender with the Legal Aid Society here in New York. It's great to have you with us, Bina. Talk about what video activism, documenting, as Kevin has done, police violence, what it means, what people have to do to ensure that their video will actually help protect the community.
So I can't speak to the technical aspects of it. I'm going to leave that to my fellow panelists. But I mean, I think the intro about backing up video and uploading video is a very important thing. As a public defender, video it's a double-edged sword. I mean, it can be an incredible tool that I have seen in my cases that can show that cops are lying in their complaints and in their paperwork, and it can save someone decades in prison, or it can hopefully indict police officers in their abuse of people and the murder of people, or even just racial profiling or discriminatory policing. But I think it's important to also note that video, on the flip side, I've seen can, when it's uploaded very quickly without a lot of thought, can pose some risks to community members. I've had clients who have been picked out by a video that was posted online. They just happened to be at an incident, and the DA is now looking for them and looking to charge them as someone who may have been an accomplice to something. And you know, there are other clients of mine who perhaps are part of the trans community and may not want their identities just out there and what happened to them, or they may be part of a conservative community and having, you know, it out there, you know, what they did or their politics can endanger them or their families. So I'm very happy that this panel is happening. I think it's an important discussion, and I think the flip side and the negative side sometimes of video is not always discussed, but hopefully, you know, we can talk about ways that people can use video to help the community and to help push forward the larger movement of what we're talking about. So things like being careful, checking in with those in the video, checking with a lawyer first. Sorry to be a lawyer on the panel. We're all overly cautious. And just people don't always know different crimes that can be caught on a video or the way that it can be twisted against someone. So I think those are the basics that I would start with.
Can you talk about how you've used video in court cases?
Absolutely. I wrote down a few examples. One, I just co-counseled a felony case here in Manhattan with Eliza Orlins, another attorney in my office. It was a gang assault case where our client was charged with being an accomplice and being there to a gang assault against another person. And he was facing a maximum of 15 years. And we were in front of a judge who absolutely would have probably sentenced him to the max if he had the chance. So, but we were able to show that we call the victims or complaining witnesses in our line of work, that he was absolutely exaggerating, first of all, things that had happened, and that this incident actually probably didn't happen the way that he claimed it happened. He claimed that he was assaulted to the point that he couldn't walk, that he was leaking blood all over his clothes and from his face, that he was limping, that he was dizzy and needed help standing up. And then we were able to get video from right after the incident where he's going back in the elevator in his building, and none of that was the case. He was fine, standing up, wasn't bleeding, wasn't falling over, and able to show that this incident likely didn't even happen at all. And he's part of a rival house, sort of group of houses in the Lower East Side, where an incentive to sort of exaggerate or even fabricate what had happened was there. And that video really helped our client a lot. We didn't have video of the incident, but we had video of after the fact showing that if what he had said was true, there'd be a very different story and a lot of different demeanor in his behavior than what the video actually showed. So we won the case. He went down the misdemeanor, but he had enough time in. He got to go home that night, which is an incredible feeling.
Can you talk about the drawbacks of video, or what people should be concerned about?
So the law is an incredibly oppressive tool in some ways, and I went to law school to hopefully flip that and make it use it in a way that I could help protect my community and do more social justice work. And the law is just one tool. I want to say first off, I think a lot of lawyers might say the law is the end all be all, but I think it's just one tool. Like video is one tool in our larger struggle. But things that we have seen. Things like resisting arrest or assault of a police officer are very easy things to make out under the law. Resisting arrest can be something that courts have deemed as simple as, they say, flailing your arms. So if a cop is trying to cuff you, you just quickly move your hands. That can be deemed resisting arrest. It's not what you colloquially think, like resisting, like fighting off and running away down the street. It's something that's just not easily handing over your wrist to be cuffed. And so in a video, when things are happening very fast, people are scared. I mean, that's what you're supposed to feel. The cops are meant to be intimidating. It's normal for people to be very scared when a cop comes after you who might be twice your size and try to cuff you. But if someone is quickly, pulling back, we've had, if the DA see that video, they might want to add a charge of resisting arrest. Or if they're seen where if a cop is being rough with them, sort of pushing back on the police officer, where they might actually be touching them, or maybe pushing a little bit harder, that can technically be trumped up to felony assault of an officer. Even though in the quick 5-second interaction where this is happening, that can be a very normal human reaction to when you're being manhandled by the police. And so, with these videos, on the one hand, I think that they've been an incredible tool in exposing what's happening and hopefully getting some meager piece of justice, if that even exists, for what's been happening, particularly to Black and brown communities. But there's also that risk of charges can be trumped up. Different people who weren't originally part of the charges the DAs were bringing are suddenly picked out because they're there and they're in the background. They can try to charge them as accomplices, and so it's a very touchy a touchy thing that I'm glad that we're able to talk about tonight.
And any other examples you have of successful use of videos?
I mean, I think there are dozens within legal aid, for instance, and I'm also a member of the National Lawyers Guild. You know, Cop Watch is definitely a friend of ours, and we've represented many members of Cop Watch. I have a colleague at legal aid right now who just won an acquittal a few weeks ago of someone who is part of Cop Watch who was simply filming the arrest of someone else, and on the video, you know, they tried to say he was resisting arrest and obstructing government administration. Those are misdemeanors, but the video showed that the sidewalk was completely clear. He wasn't blocking pedestrian traffic. He was calmly, you know, filming. When they asked him to back up, he backed up with the video, and then they demanded to see his ID, which in New York, you don't have to show ID. The only time you have to show ID is if you're pulled over in a car or if they're trying to actually arrest you or issue you a summons. So they tried to demand that he just show his ID to intimidate him, and he politely declined, and they threw him against a wall, and he's very confused and scared and sort of saying, I don't have to show you ID, what are you doing? And then they arrest him. So the video is able to show that, one, he wasn't blocking you know, pedestrian traffic. You know, two, he wasn't getting in the officer's way. He was actually very calm and stayed out of their way. And three, he wasn't resisting arrest, but in fact very confused and scared when the officer just suddenly slammed his face into the wall. And so we, our colleague won an acquittal on that case too.
Do you have to hand over your video camera if police ask?
It's a gray area. I mean, I would say no. You can politely decline, say I don't consent to this search. I don't consent to giving you my property. If it's a police order, we often tell people for their safety and for you know, to not escalate to any violence, perhaps that they should. But I would hope, you know, that people would have something similar to the case we heard about in the intro, that something automatically backs up your video, or there's a lock, you know, screen lock on your phone that you can quickly lock it. But just having to turn over, like cops might say, like hand me your bag or open up your purse to search, you don't have to aid cops in their investigations. So that's your right to, your Fourth Amendment right against unreasonable search and seizure. And even though we tell people to be careful not to physically resist, to not like pull your bag away or say, I'm not giving you my camera, I'm pulling it away. You don't necessarily have to help them. Be like, oh, here's my bag and here's my camera. You can just say, you know, I don't consent to this search. I decline to give you, you know, my equipment or whatnot. And if they take it, you know, you don't physically fight them, but you've at least protected your right to challenge that if a court later deemed that that was a completely unlawful search for them to demand your bag or your camera.
Well, we're going to continue this conversation, but I want to bring Tenjiwe Makaris in, who is a community organizer with a history of organizing against police violence and the occupation of Black and oppressed communities by law enforcement. Most recently, Tenjiwe works with a team called Blackbird, which is focused on movement building in this current historical moment that centers on anti-Black racism, state violence, Black resistance as part of the ongoing struggle to transform the country and the world. Tenjiwe, can you talk about what you're doing with Blackbird?
Sure. Well, first, I just want to thank folks for having this, and it's an honor to be in the presence of people that expose certain truths and still do the work and still document. So I just wanted to raise that up. And even before going into Blackbird and what we do, which is primarily focused on movement building, in this moment, I want to start off by saying that filming and documenting is important because historically our communities have been under an occupation, have been dealing with the kind of police terror that goes unknown outside of our communities. And then we then have to stomach when our people's bones are broken, when they go unseen for days, weeks, when they are dead, and the officers, the courts, tell us that it was their fault, that someone else did it. We've had to sit with these lies historically. And so Cop Watch, documenting filming, has a history. It's an act of resistance. It's born for the purpose of telling and surfacing our truths. So when you hear the Freddie Gray, when you hear Kimani Gray, when you hear the stories of our people across the country who have been killed, their lives have been taken, we film to tell our truths so that they cannot lie and say that they did not do it, that they did not kill our people. And so that is why documenting is so important. And it's also important because it serves as an act of resistance. To be in the company of your people being harassed, being targeted, being assaulted, and to say, I am not going to leave you. I am here to film what's happening to you. And I want that officer to see that I am doing it is an act of resistance. And it's born out of the history and the struggle of our people. And so when you think about, or when I think about Blackbird, I think about this movement, and this movement is not just this particular moment that happened this year. Again, it's born out of a history and a struggle for freedom in this country. And we all are here because of young people who had the courage to document years ago, and then young people had the courage to document after the killing of Michael Brown. They documented their resistance, and they also documented their response to their resistance, which was high-grade military weapon, MRAPs, LRABs, tanks on the street, without them using their own power, filming, telling their own truth. We would not know the extent of which they came for our people in Ferguson, Missouri. But they also come for our people across the country, right? And we have continued to film, whether it's New York City, Wisconsin. And so because of that, we sit in this moment where the world is talking about anti-Black racism, Black Lives Matter, state violence. This is why we are here. And Blackbird exists to think about this larger question, which is how do we sustain and grow a movement that is not going to be placated by putting cameras on police officers, right? That is not going to stop unless we see the realization of the kind of visionary demands where police not just stop killing us, but they stop occupying our communities. And in fact, they stop existing in our communities in the way they exist right now. A complete transformation of this country is what it would mean to end anti-Black racism, what it would mean to end state violence. And so Blackbird is a team that thinks about that question, how to build a movement to address that question, to hold that question, and think through the answer to that question, but to also help create spaces where we can think about how we awaken our political imagination enough that we don't limit ourselves to a conversation around police trainings and body cameras, but an eradication of a force, of an entity in this country that exists to keep us in order. And it looks like dead bodies, whether it's in St. Louis, whether it's in New York City, Wisconsin, anywhere across the country.
Anjiwe, do you sense a change among the police since Michael Brown was killed, but also in the communities a sense of entitlement, that there is some way of organizing that will defend people against police violence?
So I think the more we document and the more they see that we are documenting, the more they're on notice, right? Yes. That said, I think that there's a lot that we have to do. But there is. The moment, I did cop watch for years, and I noticed that it's when the moment that you show up to a scene with a camera, and they know you're filming, many times what they're doing shifts, right? And so I think that we see that in incidents, but we also see that in the more cases that are being surfaced to the public.
We're now going to go to Raull Santiago, who is a human rights activist, a media maker, a resident of one of the major favelas in Rio de Janeiro in Brazil. He describes himself as a bridge builder, as a connection maker, and a mediator, and is one of the co-founders of the Straight Talk Collective, Papo Reto, a network of young activists that uses smartphones and social media to tell their own stories, report issues that are relevant to community, and to counter stereotypes. I'm reading from the program. You all can do that yourselves, but because this is also on video stream, I want everyone to know who each of our participants are. Papo Reto's guerrilla-style journalism is made by, for, and with the favela residents themselves, helping create a protective network for residents in times of violence, while also fostering spaces for dialogue and exchange. Papo Reto has been featured in many different mainstream corporate newspapers, from the New York Times to Fusion TV to, well, all over. And I'd like to ask Raull if you can talk about why you founded Papo Reto and what you're doing in Brazil.
Boa noite. O Papo Reto, ele surgiu no Complexo do Alemão por conta de outras situações decorrentes do abandono que aconteciam naquele território.
So, Papo Reto, can you hear me? Turn it on, maybe? That would help.
No.
We teach technology. So Papo Reto was born for many reasons, but all of them coming back to the root issue of years and years of abandonment in the area where the community resides.
Ele tem essa força, essa potência e essa visibilidade porque ele surgiu há pouco mais de um ano. É um coletivo recente no Complexo do Alemão que surgiu de pessoas que se uniram, ativistas, pessoas que já trabalhavam com questões dos direitos humanos, em um momento onde fortes chuvas geraram muitos desabamentos no Complexo do Alemão.
So it was born about a year ago, and it was made by people from the community who had been involved in human rights and social justice struggles for their entire lives. It's about a year old, and it has the strength and the potency and the visibility it has today because of the people that were behind it and came together at a very key moment, which was a moment where very heavy rainfalls were falling in the community and destroying a lot of homes with families in them.
E para grupos de pessoas que trabalhavam com ativismo e com essas questões, se uniram para ajudar essas famílias que perderam suas casas e seus pertences em desabamentos, em uma grande ação conjunta desses diversos personagens do Complexo do Alemão. E após resolver essa situação com as famílias desabrigadas, algumas pessoas resolveram dar continuidade nesse trabalho conjunto por conta da sua potência, e aí surgiu o Papo Reto.
So after resolving the situation of these families who had lost all their belongings and their homes, the people who were involved in that decided to bond together and continue working together in a community-wide network to start addressing some of the other issues that the community was facing.
No Rio de Janeiro, quando você faz alguma ação no campo do social, você nunca tem uma vertente de atuação, você tem várias. Essa do desabamento foi uma ação conjunta, mas o coletivo Papo Reto, ele tem uma forte atuação no campo de usar a comunicação, o audiovisual como ferramenta dos direitos humanos, principalmente acompanhando as questões da violência policial. Por isso a gente queria abrir com um vídeo para tentar trazer esse contexto para todos.
So in Rio, when you work on one issue, it's never that issue alone. And the rains and what happened was just an entry point for these residents to bond together. And today, the collective uses a lot of communication strategies, social media, and video as a tool to show what's happening and to protect and defend the rights of the citizens. So just to bring you to Complexo do Alemão and give you a little bit of more context, we'd like to show a short minute from a video.
Boa noite, como é que o senhor se chama?
Carlos.
O senhor trabalha onde?
Eu trabalho no coletivo Papo Reto.
Cadê a autorização para o senhor me filmar?
Eu sou jornalista.
Mas eu
não preciso de autorização para filmar o senhor.
Negativo.
Eu não preciso. Eu não vou me enrolar. Aqui eu não estou descumprindo nenhuma lei. Você está me coagindo. Está me coagindo. Me colocou no canto da parede por quê?
Qual o problema disso? Qual o problema disso?
Sai daí.
Right now, we're on our way to meet with the Papo Reto Collective. These are the people who have been documenting the police brutality throughout the favelas. But we're not allowed to film in these neighborhoods without permission from the gangs, so we just have to stay in the car until we make it to our destination.
O Papo Reto, ele é uma ferramenta não só de diálogo, mas de resistência, de autossegurança. Por conta das sucessivas mortes que acontecem há anos, mas a partir da democratização das redes sociais, da comunicação alternativa, de todo mundo com acesso a celular, as coisas começaram a ficar mais visíveis.
The Papo Reto Collective is made up of residents of Complexo do Alemão, one of Rio de Janeiro's largest shantytowns. Located in the north zone of the city, this favela is home to nearly 70,000 people. Like all of Rio's favelas, Complexo do Alemão is where poor and working-class Afro-Brazilians have put down roots in the city. This complex of favelas was once firmly in the hands of the Red Command, a notorious narco-trafficking gang. But police have established an occupation force here, part of the government's controversial urban pacification initiative.
Essa questão da contenção da camada popular, da militarização desses espaços, é que acaba diminuindo um pouco a vida desse lugar. Mas, no geral, as pessoas tentam seguir tranquilas, sobrevivendo.
Clashes happen almost daily. Too often, it is innocent residents who are the casualties. With each killing, the people's anger toward the police grows, boiling over into a series of mass protests throughout 2000.
Carlos.
Essas imagens que vocês viram são de uma favela no Rio de Janeiro, em especial aqui a gente mora, no Complexo do Alemão.
So those images are from one favela in Rio where we live, Complexo do Alemão.
No Rio de Janeiro, há duas realidades. A teórica, que é compartilhada com o mundo, sobre a cidade maravilhosa, as praias e as suas belezas.
There are two cities in Rio. One is the theoretical city, which you all know, the tourism, the beaches, the beauty.
E há uma realidade escondida, que é a das pessoas que moram nas favelas.
And another is a hidden reality of the people who live in favelas.
O Rio de Janeiro ele tem se tornado cada vez uma cidade mais cara, e isso não é de hoje.
Rio has become increasingly expensive, and that's not a new thing.
E com essa situação de encarecimento dos espaços do asfalto, onde tem melhor moradia, melhor acesso à educação, as pessoas mais pobres, sem acesso a recursos, foram obrigadas a viver cada vez mais escondidas no território do Rio de Janeiro.
So as the city gets more expensive, the poor people are pushed farther and farther out, away from the basic services that they all have a right to.
Na tentativa de fazer valer os seus direitos, os mais básicos que sejam, como moradia e saneamento, pessoas que moravam embaixo, no Rio de Janeiro, começaram, com essa exclusão, a ocupar os morros para sobreviverem.
So to try and survive, the people would occupy the hillsides, which is where many of the favelas are, to just as a means of survival, and then sanitation and running water, all of that would be done by the community itself, so complete abandonment.
Os pobres, os pretos e povos de outros estados que tentaram buscar uma forma melhor de vida no Rio de Janeiro foram excluídas, foram segregadas, ocuparam esses espaços para tentar sobreviver.
So the poor, the black, the people who migrated from other states for better economic opportunity were excluded from what the city had to offer and had to live under permanent exclusion and segregation in these spaces.
E quando começaram a surgir as favelas da forma como vocês viram no vídeo, por cima das montanhas, diversas casas uma por cima da outra.
And when these homes started emerging in the favelas, one home on top of the other, as you saw in the video.
As primeiras favelas no Rio de Janeiro, elas eram feitas de barracos de madeira e cobertos com uma folha.
The first favelas in Rio were made with wood, and the roof was like banana leaf trees that would cover them.
O nome da folha dessa planta é conhecida como favela, e daí vem o nome das favelas no Rio de Janeiro.
And that leaf, the name of it is favela, and that's why they're called favelas.
Com os anos e o crescimento das favelas no Rio de Janeiro ocupando os morros, quem morava no asfalto, que é onde a gente faz a divisão do que a gente considera a cidade partida no Rio de Janeiro por conta da segregação favela e asfalto.
So over the years, whoever lived down there, which they call the concrete. So if you live on the concrete, you live in the good city with all the services, and then the favela were the hillsides.
Quando viram as favelas e o crescimento desse espaço onde pobres, excluídos e negros criaram o seu método de sobrevivência, olharam para aquele espaço e disseram que aquilo era feio.
So when the people from the concrete saw these spaces, they looked at it and said that that was ugly.
Consideraram feio pessoas de forma alternativa construírem seus lares e construírem saneamento improvisado o mais básico possível, quando eles tinham uma condição de vida muito melhor do que a nossa e nos excluíram.
So they thought it was ugly to see these community members coming together and running their own water and running their own sanitation lines, they kept excluding them from the benefits of the city.
Os anos se passaram, as favelas se multiplicaram e hoje são mais de 1.000 favelas só no Rio de Janeiro.
So over the years, the favelas grew, and today there are more than 1,000 favelas in Rio.
O Complexo do Alemão, onde o Papo Reto atua, tem outros dois, inclusive, que compõem o Papo Reto aqui na plateia, o Carlos Coutinho e a Renata, é um conjunto de favelas com 200.000 moradores.
So the Complexo do Alemão favelas where we're from, and there are two more Papo Reto members here, Coutinho and Renata, is a place where 200,000 people live.
200.000 pessoas que diariamente acordam com uma única preocupação: como sobreviver àquele dia.
So 200,000 people that every morning wake up with the same concern: how do I survive this day?
Porque desde o primeiro momento em que quem morava no asfalto olhou para a favela e considerou aquilo feio,
because since the first moment when those who lived down there looked at that hillside and thought that favelas were ugly,
em momento algum houve uma construção coletiva de pensar melhor aquele local. Pelo contrário, transformaram o feio em perigoso, e o perigoso colocaram a polícia para subir as favelas e conter aquele feio que eles consideravam perigoso.
So there was never a thought to integrate that. The thought was always, that's ugly, that's bad, we must contain it, we must oppress it, and send police forces to it to contain it.
Desde o início das favelas até hoje, a gente vive situações de remoções das favelas.
So since the favelas began, there's a history of long history of forced evictions of these spaces.
E os governantes, empresários e outras pessoas que poderiam pensar numa construção de uma cidade plural, de fato, participativa,
and the authorities and politicians who could be thinking of a more inclusive approach to making a city,
pensaram desde a primeira favela até hoje, continuam pensando a favela apenas a partir da mira de um fuzil de um policial.
But the only way they've always understood the favela, and they continue to understand the favela, is only through the whole of their AK-47 pointed at it.
Política pública nas favelas do Rio de Janeiro é apenas a segurança, e a segurança deles para nós, ou seja, uma segurança que nos vê como perigosos e mandam armamentos para nos conter, não sei de quê.
So the only public policy that favelas have ever received are public policies related to security. So that's the only way they see us, because they see us as this threat and this big danger.
Com essa situação de violência e ainda essa perseguição policial dos territórios das favelas onde nós vivemos, o aumento de violência nesse território, ele também cresceu.
This has led to a very big escalation of the violence in these spaces.
De que forma? Jovens como eu, alguns deles acreditaram na luta armada como um caminho contra essa situação violenta que a polícia trazia para dentro da favela.
So, because of this, many young boys like me have seen armed resistance as the only way to fight back.
O Rio de Janeiro é uma cidade de exclusão e de violência. E ainda hoje, as pessoas que não moram na favela têm a coragem e a ousadia de apontar o dedo para a favela e dizer que a culpa dos problemas da cidade é daquele pobre que mora ali naquele território.
The history of favelas is a history of resistance, and the people who don't live there have the audacity to say that they're the ones who present the threat and who are the problem, when in fact they're the ones that have been resisting for their survival.
Com isso, política pública para aquele território continua sendo violência e polícia.
So the only public policy is violence and police.
A polícia do Rio de Janeiro é uma das polícias mais assassinas do mundo.
The police of Rio is one of the more highest rates of murder in the world.
E também uma das mais corruptas.
And one of the more corrupt.
A tropa de elite do Rio de Janeiro se chama BOP, Batalhão de Operações Especiais, e o seu símbolo é uma caveira com uma faca enfiada no crânio.
The riot police of Rio is named BOP, and its logo is a skull with a sword through it.
Essa é a política pública que mandam para as favelas.
That's the public safety that we get sent in favelas.
Durante anos, essa polícia entrou na favela, considerou a todos que ali moravam como hostis, e nos violaram de diversas formas, e como principal o extermínio do nosso povo.
So for years and years, the police would come into our communities and see us as hostile, and kill us and murder us and just see us as the enemy, and we were subject to many different kinds of violations.
50.000 pessoas morrem de forma violenta por ano no Brasil.
50,000 people die of homicide in Brazil a year.
Dessas pessoas, mais de 50% são jovens.
More than 50% are young.
Desses jovens, 70% são negros.
Of these young people, 70% are Afro-Brazilians.
E esses assassinatos acontecem dentro das favelas.
And these murders happen inside the favelas.
Há um extermínio da população moradora de favela e principalmente dos jovens negros da favela.
There is an extermination of young black Brazilian youth, particularly young black Brazilian youth from favelas in course.
A polícia do Rio de Janeiro, ela se tornou algo com vida própria.
The Rio Police has become its own beast, has its own life.
Há as organizações, há os comandos hierárquicos, como por exemplo um secretário de segurança.
There's the head of security, cabinet level.
Mas a polícia em si, ela se organiza por baixo do tapete, escondida.
But it also organizes itself under the rug.
E hoje nós que trabalhamos com direitos humanos e essas questões, consideramos a Polícia Militar do Rio de Janeiro a maior facção que existe no Rio de Janeiro.
And today we consider the police the biggest faction that exists, the biggest criminal faction that exists in Rio.
Essa polícia que ia nas favelas com o discurso de operação contra o tráfico de drogas.
This police that went to favelas with the discourse of fighting drugs.
Hoje recentemente foi criada uma nova política para essas favelas que também pensa a partir da arma do policial.
So there's a new policy today that also thinks about the use of these weapons as the main policy.
Elas são chamadas UPP, Unidade de Polícia Pacificadora.
And these are called the pacification police, which are pacification, which are permanent occupation.
E aí essa polícia que ia na favela em incursões, operações, com o discurso de conter o tráfico de drogas, é colocada de forma permanente dentro do nosso território.
So this police that would come to fight drug factions today come and is in a permanent occupation of our communities.
A cidade partida continua.
So the split city continues.
E agora há uma contenção da vida cotidiana do pobre, há uma militarização dos espaços de favela.
And all of the spaces are now militarized and all of the rights of the communities are now under occupation.
Essa forma de atuação com a polícia dentro da favela,
this form of behaving with the police inside the favelas,
é utilizada por políticos ou empresários para discursos de que a cidade está em paz.
And politicians use this to say that the city is at peace.
Vende-se uma falsa ideia de pacificação da entrada da favela para o asfalto.
There's a false sense of pacification from the community out.
E da favela para dentro, nós vivemos essa contenção e situações de violência e extermínio diário.
But on the inside, we're suffering this extermination on a daily basis and violence.
Governantes viraram as costas para a favela.
The politicians have turned their backs on the favela.
Pessoas influentes que poderiam mudar essa situação viraram as costas para a favela.
People with power or influence who could change this also turned their backs on the favela.
E com este aparelho,
and with this
redes
device
sociais,
and with the social media,
é que a gente tem fortalecido a revolução
is how we have strengthened the revolution
e conseguido expor para além dessa barreira de contenção militar
and to show beyond this barrier of contention and containment
a realidade violenta que a gente tem sofrido na mão da polícia do Estado dentro das favelas.
The violent reality that we have lived through in the at the hands of the police in these favelas.
É isso.
That's it.
Priscilla Neri, who is translating right here and is one of the staff of Witness. If you wouldn't mind for a moment, though you weren't an official part of the panel, your voice is as important as anyone else's, how you discovered Papo Reto and how you came together, Witness and your group in Brazil.
You want me to answer that? Or
if you would answer it. No, oh yeah.
So Witness, we're looking at, as there's an explosion of citizen video of this kind of violence coming from inside the favelas. However, we weren't seeing more videos lead to more rights, right? For a variety of reasons. So what we're really interested in, how can we support the amazing resistance that Raull and many other media collectives like Papo Reto.
Are you Brazilian yourself?
I am Brazilian, yes. I'm a Brazilian New Yorker, but yes. How we could help them think about the use of video, sharing experiences that we've had access to from activists all over the world, in the Middle East, in Africa, and other parts of the world. How can we see what's useful to them and then take what they're doing and bring it to these groups all around the world and see what's useful to them? So we first started noticing Raull's Facebook and Coutinho's Facebook and Renata's Facebook with a very kind of frequent level of videos being published about what was happening under this militarized occupation. And we were just so impressed by the brave courage and the resilience and the risk that they were facing to do this. And really what we're hoping to do is just to echo this call for justice and to share what we've learned in other spaces and share back.
What has been the community response, Raull, in the favela to your videoing? And the police's response?
Diferente do que foi colocado aqui por algumas pessoas que estão compondo o painel.
Differently from what some people on the panel already shared.
Quem trabalha com ativismo e principalmente com audiovisual, é impossível diálogo tranquilo com a polícia do Rio de Janeiro.
It's not possible to have a cordial conversation when you're videoing the police in Brazil.
Uma simples revista policial no Rio de Janeiro, ela acontece de forma violenta, seja com agressão ou seja verbal.
Any kind of like search or interaction is very violent, whether it's verbally violent or physically violent.
A polícia do Rio de Janeiro mata pobre e também já matou advogados e juízes, inclusive, que foram contra a atuação policial.
The police has killed not just poor people, but also judges and investigators who have tried to rise up against this.
As pessoas ainda têm muito medo de filmar qualquer situação.
People are still very afraid to film these incidents as they happen.
O coletivo Papo Reto e algumas outras poucas pessoas são dos poucos grupos que estão se expondo, fazendo esse tipo de cobertura.
So Papo Reto is one of the few that's really doing this kind of coverage, really doing a very focused coverage on what the police is and putting it out there despite the risk.
E isso acabou trazendo muita visibilidade.
This brought a lot of visibility.
Em questão à força policial, muitas ameaças.
And a lot of threats also from the police.
E aos moradores, aos poucos eles têm começado a participar e a entender a importância de filmar esse tipo de situação.
And the residents have slowly begun to really understand the potential of filming and have started to increasingly film more.
A diferença é que no Rio de Janeiro, a polícia que você filma violando, ela continua no mesmo lugar que você, porque ela está colocada de forma permanente naquele espaço.
The difference perhaps is that the police that you're filming in Brazil will be there tomorrow because they're permanently there in a permanent occupation. So.
Pessoas são agredidas, pessoas desaparecem, pessoas são eliminadas.
So people are suffer physical assaults, they are eliminated, they disappear.
So what gives you the courage to keep doing this?
Tanto eu quanto os outros companheiros, a gente também já viveu situações de violência policial.
Me and the other members of the collective have suffered police violence ourselves as well.
O avanço de situações negativas é tanto que nem o medo a gente sente mais.
Things have gotten to such a level that we don't even feel the fear anymore.
A gente hoje não briga não usa o discurso de pedir paz.
We don't ask for peace. We don't use that as a terminology in our work today.
Porque nas favelas do Rio de Janeiro, paz é apenas discurso que gera ainda mais violência.
Because in Rio, that discourse and the use of the word peace comes with so much violence.
Porque quando você pede paz, e aí o paz queria dizer educação, saúde, uma melhor condição de vida, os governantes entendem apenas como polícia e mandam mais violência.
Because when you say peace, and maybe you mean education and health and sanitation, the government hears police and sends more police. So historically, it's something that's only generated more violence.
Por isso hoje o movimento busca a frase que diz: queremos a liberdade de viver.
So today our phrase is, we want the liberty to live.
E usamos a frase "está tudo errado nas favelas".
And we use the phrase "everything is wrong in the favelas".
We are just about to wrap up, but I said we were going to take a few questions, and I'd like to take 3 questions, each person one after the other, and throw it open to people here. And just speak as loudly as you can, yes. And make it real. And make your point, your question really short, if you would. And another question. We'll take them all 3.
May I? Hey, so my question is also to Raull. I wanted Raull if he has the possibility to talk a little bit about media and how media works in Rio. I mean, corporate-sponsored media, like mainstream media.
And a third question. Okay, right here. You have a microphone.
My question is for Raull. I would like to know what kind of support you feel that we in the international community can best give to improve the quality of life for people in the favelas.
Raull, you've got 3 questions.
Qual é a primeira Olimpíada? Sim.
And 3 minutes to answer them.
3 minutes.
Então,
Per answer or total? This is important.
4 minutes total.
Então, as Copas e a Olimpíada, elas geraram ainda mais o aumento da militarização dos espaços da favela.
The World Cup and the Olympics have increased the militarization of the favelas.
Nós vemos a favela como potência, eles como problema.
We see the favela as potential. They see it as problem.
Eles, eu digo os governantes principalmente.
When I say they, I mean the politicians.
Que sempre que pensam algo para a cidade, que possa trazer algo positivo para a cidade, excluem as favelas, vendo aqueles espaços não como potência, mas como locais violentos.
Anytime they think about something that could benefit the city, they see the favela spaces as something that should not be integrated because again, they see it as a problem and not as a potential.
Olimpíadas e Copa do Mundo tornaram o Rio de Janeiro ainda mais caro.
The city is more expensive with these events.
E fez com que pessoas que moravam em favelas fossem morar para ainda mais distante dos locais onde antes moravam.
People are having to live even farther from where they lived before because of the cost.
Mega eventos como esses geraram uma grande expulsão de favelados para locais ainda mais extremos do Rio de Janeiro.
These major sporting events have led to lots of people being removed and forcibly evicted to even farther than where they lived before.
A grande mídia no Rio de Janeiro. A grande mídia no Rio de Janeiro, ela sempre atuou e também fez a leitura da favela, da entrada da favela para fora, e nunca um convívio interno.
The mainstream media in Rio has always talked about the favelas also from the outside in, right? So never from the inside out, always from the outsider perspective.
E tem como fontes em situações que acontecem na favela a própria polícia.
And their main source, whenever something happens in these spaces, is the police.
Violência gera dinheiro e gera matéria.
Violence generates money and it generates leading stories for these news media.
Você consegue ter todos os veículos de mídia em situações violentas que acontecem nas favelas.
They all show up when there's a very violent incident happening in the favela.
Mas se chamar para cobrir uma atividade cultural ou algo positivo, se vir já é muito.
When you invite them to come cover a cultural happening or something positive, if one shows up, that's plenty. That's a lot.
Há abismo muito distante entre a realidade que passa na televisão e a realidade que de fato a gente vive.
There's a big abyss between what happens on TV and the reality we live.
Terceiro.
Você lembra?
Sim. Eu acredito que espaços como esses, em que eu estou aqui agora tendo a oportunidade, junto com os meus companheiros, de expor a nossa realidade, não apenas na rede social, mas compartilhando olho a olho com cada um.
Spaces like this in which we can talk about our reality face to face, not just on social media.
Há problema no nosso território no Brasil e há problemas aqui mesmo na casa de vocês.
We have problems in Brazil, and there are also problems here in your own backyard, from what I've heard.
Aqui são pessoas que fazem um trabalho onde há muita exposição individual.
And we do a kind of work where there's a lot of individual kind of exposure for the people doing the work.
No território onde eu vivo e o trabalho que muitos dos companheiros aqui realizam, a hipótese, as chances da gente morrer são enormes.
Where I live, the chances of us dying are very high.
Aquelas cenas de filme de casas furadas e pessoas morrendo, essa é uma realidade das favelas do Rio de Janeiro e isso acontece todo dia.
The movie scenes you may see in movies of homes ridden by bullets and people dying, that is something that is a daily part of our existence.
A cena que a gente viu no vídeo de confrontos, tanques de guerra dentro das favelas, isso também acontece todo dia.
So what you saw in the video, extensive gunfire, military tanks in these spaces is also something that happens every day.
A chance de cada um de nós aqui morrermos de forma violenta e de tiro, principalmente quando voltarmos para nossas casas, é enorme.
It's a very high chance that we could get hit by a bullet on our way home. At the end of the day, it's a very high probability.
Tendo consciência dessa realidade, a partir desse convívio, dessas trocas, eu devolvo a pergunta, eu provoco a todo mundo a se pensar, o que a gente pode fazer por um país melhor e por um mundo melhor?
So here in this space, I return the question back to you, being able to having shared these stories, what is it that we can do together to create a more just world?
Acredito que assumir que há um preconceito e uma perseguição com negros e pobres já é um caminho, porque aceitando que há um problema, a gente começa a pensar de fato solução e não apenas deixar de lado dizendo, isso não existe, isso é ilusão.
So if we can, as a first step, recognize the racism and persecution for poor and black people, that's the first step of recognizing the problem and acknowledging it and then thinking about the solutions.
Trazer para si o problema faz essa grande situação ficar pequena, porque cada um de nós resolve um pouco e aí a gente consegue avançar em alguma coisa.
So if we can all come together, that big problem becomes smaller because then we can start working together to change it.
Thank everyone very much, the panelists who have spoken tonight. And I think Madeleine is going to invite us to have a more informal, extended conversation after.
Yeah, thank you so much. I feel like we have only begun a conversation tonight, and we do not want it to end right now. We don't want it to end tonight. We hope that you will all stick around with us and continue in this work together. I want to give another thank you to all of us who joined this event, Amy Goodman for moderating, our great panelists, Kevin Moore, Dina Ahmad, Kenjiwe McHarris, Raull Santiago, and my colleague Priscilla Neri for translating. I also want to remind you that a lot was mentioned tonight in terms of what we can all do, how citizens and activists can secure their footage, how to think about what to do after you've filmed to make sure that you're not putting anyone else at risk in exposing that footage, whether on social media or on the news media. And if you go to lab.witness.org/projects, we have a lot of resources that we've been working on with our allies here together tonight. So I hope you'll take a look at what we have there, as well as other stories of how videos have made a difference in police accountability in Brazil. Before you get up, I'd like to quickly give a few thanks to folks who put tonight together, including my colleagues Priscilla, Morgan, Matisse, and Jackie. Also to Ryan for live streaming the event, and all of the Witness staff, volunteers, and interns who have been assisting. I also want to acknowledge a few people in the room who have been supporting this work. Raull's colleagues from Papo Reto are here tonight as well. If you can wave, Renata and Coutinho. Bienvenidos. We'd like to give a special thanks to the Brazil Foundation for making Papo Reto's visit to New York possible. And we're seeing just here on stage just how important it is to exchange these stories because they take place not just in New York, not just in Baltimore and Oakland, but around the world. And finding these moments of solidarity and exchange are so important. So thank you, Brazil Foundation. Also joining us are colleagues of Kevin Moore from Copwatch, Jacob Crawford, and a crew has come from other cities across the country to join us tonight. Do you want to give a little hand? Where are you? Welcome and thank you for joining us. Alexandre Gueto is a Brazilian artist whose street art has illuminated police violence and injustice in Brazil, and he's also visiting. Welcome and thank you. And Claire Wardle with the Eyewitness Media Hub is also here tonight. Claire, if you can wave. She and her colleagues have been working on thinking about these questions of how can we make sure if we are sharing videos of eyewitnesses that we do that safely and effectively. The Eyewitness Media Hub just released a new set of guidelines for journalists on what to think about when you are using eyewitness media in your footage, and you can see those guidelines in the lobby when you leave tonight. But we hope you won't leave soon. Please join us for food or drinks, and thank you all for coming.